I don't want to sit around and talk about how great things are going to be because we're not there yet. Let's just fucking make them great, and then we can talk about it.
Let's go.
Welcome to Citizen. We got a special guest today, former Navy SEAL Sam Mackey. How's it going?
Going well. Appreciate you having me on, bud.
Yeah, for sure. We met at Donuts and Demos shoot a while back, but I think we've been circling each other for some amount of time. We'll get into a bunch of stuff today, but first let's start with you. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Central Illinois for a little bit and then moved to St. Louis, and then from there moved to Northern California. And that's where I did most of my growing up. My dad was in the Coast Guard and lived in Northern California till my junior year in high school, and then moved to Seattle my senior year and joined the Navy out of there.
Wow, I mean, you've lived in some real liberal shitholes. I
I
guess Central Illinois is not that bad, but it could be.
No, yeah. We were down south by Champaign.
Okay.
So that's a lot different than up by Chicago.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, I'll be there, actually. We're going to our hard seltzer company sponsors the University of Illinois, so we'll be in Champaign for the first game of the season.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's going to take a lot of drinks to make that game palatable, to be frank. But we'll make
play.
I think Western Illinois or something like that, so a team even worse than themselves. So we'll see how it goes. But anyways, yeah, so what was that like? What part of Northern California?
Just north of San Francisco, a town called Novato in Marin.
Oh, yeah. Marin County. I used to live in Oakland back in the day.
Yeah, my dad was stationed out at Alameda.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Out there.
That makes sense. So what was it like growing up there, you know?
It was nice. I didn't mind it whatsoever, but being a military family in Marin was a little different. All my friends are getting brand new cars when they turn 16, and I purchased a '89 Plymouth Sundance for $800, so I had that to deal with. But other than that, it was great. Still have some great friends that live in the area.
Yeah, that's funny. And you said at some point you made it up to Seattle?
Yes, moved up there my senior year.
And did he just got restationed to Whidbey Island or some shit?
Yeah, it's right across from Bainbridge Island, right by Pike's. What's it called? Pike's Place, Pike's
Something
Market.
like that. Yeah, Pike. I think it's Pike's Place. Yeah.
Yeah, his ship was just a couple doors down from there.
That's cool.
And, but I got in a little bit of trouble, so that helped with the move, or made the move a little easier, I should say. And then joined the Navy right after my senior year.
What made you decide to join the Navy instead?
Movie Navy SEALs with Charlie Sheen.
Of course, yeah.
And
I think
then,
that's about 80% of the dudes your age that joined the Navy.
Absolutely. I mean, he had a profound impact on the community. And I also joined to end my probation.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I joined to end my probation.
Oh, okay. Well, that'll do it, right? What was the probation for, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, I got caught selling weed to an undercover DA agent in California, and it was over an ounce of weed and selling to an undercover agent, and then I had a fake ID on me. So your girl Kamala Harris at the time had the 3-strike rule, so I was pretty worried about that, and just wanted to end my probation. So I joined the Navy as quick as I can.
And did you join with a SEAL contract, or did you go later to Buds?
Correct. I joined with the SEAL contract.
And how did that go? Did you go through Buds on your first try, or?
Yeah, sure. It didn't go as planned. I got dropped right before second phase, or the turnover day of second phase for time runs. There's a long, weak-ass sob story behind that. And then I went to Sigonella, Italy, where I was a master at arms, or like an MP. So I was checking IDs at the front gate, and every day was the fucking worst day of my life until I made it back to Buds.
How long was that?
About a year and a half.
And what year is this?
That was 2004 and 5.
Okay. And then you go back to Buds in 2005?
Correct.
And it went swimmingly this time?
Oh, yeah. Went right through. No issues.
I mean, it's never fun, I would imagine. But
Yeah. Hell Week the second time was a lot easier. It still takes a toll on your body and it sucks, but it's the same every time. So just knowing what to expect made shit a lot easier. But then once I hit second phase, I was in uncharted territory, and it still wasn't much harder because the alternative was the fleet, and
Yeah,
the
fuck
fleet.
that.
Well,
So let's walk through buds a little bit, because I think people, and this was the case for me before some of my SEAL friends told me about it. But I think the public thinking is that you go through Hell Week immediately and then everything else is after that. But that's not really how it goes, right? Hell Week's kind of bookended by other stuff going on. So walk me through the pro. Like, what's the first thing you do when you get to buds?
Yep. First thing you do is you show up, you check in the quarter deck, and then you get a start date for NDOC. And NDOC's called something else now. I think it's called Bud's Orientation or something like that. So you get a start date for that, and then you go to supply and you get issued all your fins, your camis, all the stuff you need to go through Buds. And then you start NDOC. And NDOC at the time was, I believe, 5 weeks. And there is kind of half days, 3/4 days, mini buds. You still get a lot of quitters. And then after you complete that, you have what you called your class up day, and that's the first day of first phase. And then first phase, I believe, is about 8 weeks long. Each phase is 8 or 10 weeks, somewhere in there, give or take. And Hell Week is the fifth week, I believe. And after Hell Week, you have a walk week, and then hydro, they call it Hydro Hell Week, where you make hydro reconnaissance charts. And then you wrap up first phase after that. Then you start second phase, which is actually worse than first phase, or it's harder anyway. But everyone knows they're not going to quit. You just have to pass all the evolutions. And then you're doing 2-day dives, and you're underwater for a long time every single day. And they're just really, really long days. And then on top of that, you have to pass all your physical evolutions to get into third phase and remain with the class. And then you have third phase, and that's land navigation. That's when you start getting into tactics, land navigation. You got to San Clemente Island and learn small unit tactics and shooting, demolition, and what have you. And that you get home from that, and that's the conclusion of Buds. And I just walked 30 seconds. But yeah, to answer your question, Hell Week is at the very beginning, and you have a whole lot of shit that sucks after Hell Week, and it's a long time.
When people start quitting, I imagine like it takes some amount of time, right? Like you don't get there if you're going to quit immediately, but eventually people start quitting. How does it feel to be a guy that doesn't quit? I mean, in that instance, because I've always wondered about that. Does it, when you hear the bell ring, does it demoralize you, or just like, or is it maybe your competitive mind is like, that's one less asshole I've got to compete against, and then like your utilitarian mind is like, look, they're not going to let but a certain amount of people through this, and each one that quits is me getting like the number shrinks to a certain amount, and then they're like, all right, we can work with this class size or whatever. What was going through your mind?
I personally loved it when someone quit, and when someone rang the bell, I'm like, all right, boom, one more down. And it's some weird part of me is like, I'm taking this guy's strength and his ability, and I'm
like Highlander and shit, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I didn't mind when people quit, but people quit before they show up. People were quitting the night before first phase started, and we were standing on the grinder waiting for all the instructors to come out at like, I don't know, 4 a.m. on the first day of first phase. And the anticipation was killing guys to the point the guys were walking over and quitting before an instructor even showed up.
That's what did you ever ask why or figure out why? Like, why even go through all that fucking trouble, all the physicals you got to do, and all that paperwork and all the bullshit, the security clearance paperwork?
I don't know. I never talked to them. They're quitters. You know what I mean?
Fair enough. I mean, but it's like you go through that. That's a lot of stuff. Like you got to do an SF-86. You got to do a full workup, like a full exam, chest X-rays, all that bullshit. And then if you're in fleet, you've got to like get approval from your unit and all this other bullshit. To go to all that trouble and get there and be like, nah,
It's
fuck
a
it.
massive amount of work to go through to get to stand on that grinder, and to not even give it a shot.
I kind of feel like those people should be treated like jump refusal. So I don't know what you know about airborne operations, but if you get on the plane and you refuse to jump afterwards, you lose your wings immediately. That's a thing, right? I don't know how it works for other branches, but I was in the 82nd. That's how it works. Actually, it's in the entire Army. That's how it works. If you're a jump refusal, you lose your wings.
I believe we have this something similar. I remember there was a couple kids that wouldn't jump around the time I went through jump school. So jump school is an SQT, which is after buds, and I don't know if they were able to stick around at all. So
I mean, they definitely wouldn't get like if you quit, I guess you can come back, right? Like you could technically speaking, but there's some things that you do, and that's just it, right? You don't get invited back after that. Can you explain that?
Yeah, I think the only way to not get invited back would be some sort of integrity issue. However, I know nowadays it's a lot more competitive and it's harder to get in. So I don't know what the rules are now. But if you have some sort of integrity issue, you won't get invited back. If you quit or get hurt or, fail out, then you're invited back. But I just remember what happened in that story of the kid wouldn't jump out of the plane. He actually rolled into my class. So it was a class before mine. I couldn't tell you who it was. And then we had Drago out as a instructor in land warfare in SQT. And this kid was in my class. And every time Drago talked to our class, he would make the person sit in the back and turn around and wouldn't let him stand around us because I'm not going to try to impersonate his Polish accent. He's like, "These are men. You're not allowed to sit around men. You sit over there like a coward," and just publicly shamed him.
Well, I mean, fuck them, right?
Yeah, I don't give a shit.
Yeah. So you make it through buds, and then what? What happens next?
After buds, checks right into SEAL Team 8. So after buds, we went to SQT, and SQT is just a kind of a finishing school. You jump, you dive, cold weather training, more sensitive tactics training, and then after that, you get your trident and you get assigned to a SEAL team. And I got assigned to SEAL Team 8. And at the time, I didn't even know there was a SEAL Team 8 because everyone else was going to 3, and I was living in Pacific Beach in San Diego and wanted to stay there. But unbeknownst to me, it was just a big blessing in disguise. So on graduation day, they pull us all in. They say, "Hey, who's going to SEAL Team 8?" A handful of us raised our hand. They said, "Hey, who wants to deploy next week?" And I raised my hand because I didn't have shit else to do, and I didn't get all dressed up for nothing. So I flew right out the next day and went to Virginia Beach, did the whole passport rigmarole for a couple of days, and deployed right away.
Why? How does it work getting assigned to different teams? What's the purpose, or how's that selection? Is it like Hogwarts where they put a little hat on you, or how's it work?
Yeah, it's very similar to that, but it's a helmet. First of all, it's needs of the Navy, but you do put in a dream sheet, and I put in the West Coast because me and a couple of my buddies had a killer condo in Pacific Beach, and we're just kind of living the dream. And I think I might be the only one in the class that didn't get what they asked for, but looking back now, I'm very thankful for it.
Why? What was so good about SEAL Team 8, I guess? Or was it just the East Coast experience that you liked?
I like the East Coast experience. The teams are a lot closer out there. And this is just my biased opinion, because I never did any time on the West Coast after that. The teams are a lot closer because there's a lot less to do, a lot more camaraderie. And then you have, Dam Neck or SEAL Team 6 right there in your face. And so there's a lot more pressure to be better. And when new tactics come out from across the street, they filter down to us fairly quickly. So we're always trying to keep up with those guys.
Yeah, I guess that's good to have, something nearby. When did you go to sniper school?
2009.
And did you go to the Marine Corps sniper school, or did you like some of you guys go to all of them, like the Armies, then the Marines, and then like a couple of my buddies went to the Canadian sniper school as well.
Really? No, I just went to NSW sniper school.
And you guys they go back and forth. There's one in both coasts right now, I think. Like you don't have to travel for it anymore, I think.
Correct. I think they still converge at Camp Atterbury though for the shooting. When I went through, you had to go through PIC, which is learn how to use all the cameras and and all the comms equipment to shoot data back and forth. And then after that, you went into Scout, and these are three separate schools, but they put them all back to back. And Scout was the stalking and camouflage portion, building hides, and then you went into the sniper portion, which is the shooting portion, which is probably one of the most stressful things I've ever done.
Yeah, tell me about that. Why was it so stressful?
I was a new guy, so I just got home from deployment, and you're a new guy for 2 years, so you have to do a full workup cycle, then deploy, and then the moment you step foot on U.S. side or U.S. soil after that deployment, you're no longer a new guy. So I fortunately was able to make a decent reputation for myself on deployment, and I got a coveted position as a new guy going to sniper school when we got home. So it's a very, very coveted school and hard to get into, especially as a new guy. And so I just felt a lot of pressure.
And you made it through the first time for that as well?
Yeah.
And then you stayed on Team 8 for a while, right?
Correct. I was there for I think 5 deployments because I did my initial deployment to UCOM, and that was when Russia invaded Georgia, and that whole fiasco went down. And at the time, I had no clue what UCOM was. I just knew SEAL Team 8 was deployed, and a lot of the guys were in Sadr City in Afghanistan. So you had the guys in Iraq and guys in Afghanistan. I had no clue about this whole UCOM element thing at all, right? So I show up thinking I'm going to the show, and I go to UCOM and to free up an older guy to go to the show because there has to be X amount of bodies in Germany at the unit there. But then as soon as I get there, Russia invaded Georgia, so we flexed out to Romania, and we're standing by there to do some VBSS stuff, Black Sea.
Cool. Did you ever make it over to Sadr City?
Yes, I've been there.
Yeah.
Not on that rotation, though.
What year was that?
2011? No, sorry, 2010.
What was going on? So I was there at 2007 and 8, and it was it's a fucking Shia shithole. It's like 4 million goddamn people there. Everybody's got an AK.
Yeah.
I remember, so we were stationed in Bader Shab area, about 800 meters away from the border of Sadr City. And we would just like go over there and pick fights all the time for no reason. I mean, I'm sure there was some reason, but we didn't really care what the fucking reason was. As soon as our first truck drove over that border, we started taking fire every time we went there. It was wild. That was like the most consistent gunfighting I've ever been in is in Sadr City.
Were the T-walls up or were they going up? That was 2008.
Yeah, this is 2007 when we started going over there, and they were going up. But so this is when it got a little bit hairy. So they started putting T-walls up. And they would do it overnight, obviously, to avoid getting into serious gunfights. And they would have guys, they would have trucks and a cordon around it, right? Just pulling security. As soon as those trucks left, somebody would come take the fucking barriers. Like, if any Jersey barrier, they would just put it on a truck and take it. The T-walls, they would try to drag them and shit like that. So they would all be fucked up by the time we got back there. So I think eventually they gave up for a while. I don't think they ever got them fully put up while we were there.
They were fully put up when I was there in 2010 because I remember staging outside, waiting to go in. We went in there a handful of times just to go after one certain cockbag.
Yeah.
Finally ended up finding him one night, and it didn't fare too well for him.
Yeah.
Maybe I went in there 5 times, 6 times, and it was pretty anticlimactic from all the stories I've heard. I was expecting, to walk out of the building and have to rake roofs to get to the pickup truck and things of that nature, but it wasn't like that for us.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, maybe it calmed down a little bit after, because when we started going back in, nobody had been there since 2005. I think that AO went dark for a while. But yeah, I assumed they eventually got those T-walls up. I'm glad, I guess, because we spent so much time pulling security on them, and then we would get back the next day and they would be fucking gone. Like, this thing weighs like 25,000 pounds. How did you get this out of here?
I remember hearing stories when that was happening because a couple of my older guys were over there, and they pulled all the snipers in to do Overwatch for those guys putting up the T-walls. And that was a real big deal, how kinetic it was and how many guys that were shooting them and so on and so forth. So I heard all those stories, but unfortunately, I was not there in 2008.
Yeah, well, what was your next deployment to a hot zone?
Afghanistan the following year. So we get home from Iraq September or October 1st ish. And then that's when we surged Afghanistan.
Mm.
And then my troop got a bunch of new guys, as you do every 2 years. We got rid of all our new guys besides one medic that was shit hot and did a mini workup cycle, then redeployed, I believe, March the following year to Afghanistan.
And how was that? I mean, quite a bit different than Iraq. I never got to
Yeah.
go to Afghanistan, but I'm told it's quite a bit different.
Yeah, it's a lot different. I like both, and just for individual reasons, Afghanistan was the Wild West. It was great. A lot of gunfights and a lot of things you expect when you go through sniper school, building a hide, on the side of a mountain, waiting, 3 4 days out there. So I liked it from that aspect. The only part that I did not like is sometimes real hard to find out who's shooting at you because they're so far away.
Mm. I
But
mean, I feel like, you're a sniper. Let me ask you this: would you prefer to be out in the middle of the mountain somewhere, or be in a city?
hmm, that's a great question, and I do not have a preference. City is easier, but I think the mountainous is more rewarding for me.
Explain why would it be more rewarding?
Just because the environment's tough, that rock's tough. You're hiking in long. You have long infills throughout the night, and then waiting, and you're watching so much area, vice watching the street, right? So it's a harder game. If I'm a big deer hunter, and so imagine you're hunting mule deer in the mountains, and you sit back and it's a spot and stop game. So it reminded me a lot of hunting, which I like a lot. Vice in an urban environment, you're just chilling, and these guys, you have a small corridor, right? And they're either gonna walk across there or they're not.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Unfortunately, I never got to go to Afghanistan. I mean, I feel like that the Iraq War catches a lot of heat for being fucking pointless, but I don't necessarily think that the Afghanistan war. I mean, so we spent $5 trillion in 20 years to exchange the Taliban for the Taliban. That seems stupid, right? Now, it didn't necessarily have to go that way. Maybe we probably should have nuked that place on day one. Frankly, just like not even a city, just nuke the mountains somewhere and show them the capability and be like, all right, you can surrender or you're all gonna die. I think that would have been a much more appropriate way to handle it, but that's not how it went. But yeah, I don't
What was
think.
what was the cause and effect on the Moab?
I mean, I don't know. It's a what do they weigh? 2,500 pounds?
I thought it was more than that. That's not
Or
that big.
no, that's not that big. Hold on. Moab weight. 21,000 pounds. Okay, so that's pretty fucking big.
Yeah.
Um,
'Cause I
yeah,
remember they pushed it on the back of like a C5 or something, didn't they? It wasn't on the rails, of course.
yeah, they dropped a couple, right?
Yeah,
And maybe the Pashtun Valley or somewhere like that where there's not a bunch of people. I feel like I remember them dropping some, but like the outset of the war, it was just agency dudes with SOFLAM fucking lighting up targets and shit with that Operation Anaconda bullshit. But yeah,
Mhm.
we did some shows of force. I just don't. I don't think the execution of the Afghanistan war gets enough criticism, frankly, because it was fucking stupid from the very beginning. Like the Taliban was not our enemy. We made them our enemy, but that didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, frankly. Like, yeah, they suck and we don't like them and they're assholes. But the, there was a way to handle that situation without going into a 20-year war. I think.
I feel that way on both fronts. If we keep making decisions for the battlefield on Capitol Hill, that we're just going to keep running into the same shit over and over, right? And we need to have someone that has a palate to win and do what it takes to win. Otherwise, we're just going to keep fighting these long ass wars and nothing out of it.
Um. So, what did you do? How did you end your career? Did you decide to stay in for the whole 20 years, or?
Yep. I stayed in for the whole 20 years, and I got to my 16-year mark, and that's when I decided that I wanted to get out right at 20
Mm.
for a bunch of different reasons. The atmosphere is changing, the environment's changing within the SEAL teams and the community itself. And it just what wasn't for me anymore. And then if you look at the numbers, it doesn't make financial sense to stay in past 20 years unless it's solely for job satisfaction.
Yeah. Or if you're going to
So
stay in for like, or well, if you're an officer, I guess it can make sense because you get bigger, like much bigger pay bumps every third year. And then, sometime like to be a general officer, to be an admiral or something like that, you kind of have to stay in for 30 to 40 years. So that doesn't exist on the enlisted side. You can only be fucking so much of a sergeant major, I would imagine, or whatever the
correct.
fuck you get, master chief.
I retired at E8 because I didn't want the position you have to take to make E9 turned into a desk job, and I didn't want to do that. So I decided just to retire at E8 and prep myself for my future.
Is there anything you would change about the service or the decisions you made or any of that stuff?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head, I had a great run. I was real fortunate to have some great deployments and meet some of the best people on the face of this earth. So I don't take it back.
Yeah. I enjoyed my time as well. I mean, there were periods, the transition out was rough, but the actual service itself was pretty fun, to be honest. I mean, of course it sucks sometimes, but what are you going to do? I was only there 5 years.
Okay.
So that's enough to still have a decent attitude about it, I think.
Oh, yeah.
If I'd stayed longer, it may have gone another way. So you talked about prepping for life after the military. What was that? What did you decide to do?
Yes. So my whole career, I thought, I'll do 30 years, and then after my 30 years is up, or whatever time, beyond 20 that was, I'll probably go work for, Ground Branch or do something of that nature, and then and just kind of carry a gun and do that the rest of my life. And then I realized as I matured that I never want to carry a gun for anybody else. And I never want to work for anybody else. So then I started preparing myself to get out and, start a company and just seek life through a different way, if that makes sense at all.
Yeah, I
Not
mean,
just carry.
find some kind of purpose that
Correct.
doesn't have to do with everybody else other than yourself, maybe.
And it didn't even dawn on me till one of my dear friends, John Hughes, him and I were having a beer together, and he just looks over at me and goes, "You know what? I don't think you should ever work for anybody ever again." And that thought had never crossed my mind before my life. And I'm like, okay, well, what the hell should I do? Because I think you should start a company, and I suggest doing, concrete, electricity, plumbing, HVAC, something of that nature, and move down here to Texas and get her going. So I'm like, well, shit, concrete sounds all right, and don't know much about it, but I know there's a lot of money in it. So I went back to Virginia Beach, found a guy that owns a concrete company, and just showed up and started pouring driveways for free for a summer, and learned how to do it, and then started my own company. Never really did shit with that because that's around that same time is when I got involved with Outsider.
And what's Outsider?
So Outsider, we're an outdoor lifestyle brand that sells products, and it's owned by myself and Jay Cutler, the former NFL quarterback, not the bodybuilder guy. So that came to fruition a couple of years ago, and Jay and I were hunting together, and he told me about this concept of this outdoor lifestyle brand, and I really liked the idea. And because I'm a products guy, I like drinkware, I like coolers, things of that nature. And so then it snowballed, and it turned into us developing products, and then eventually turned into an internal acquisition where Jay purchased the company, then brought me on and to run it.
And what's the day to day like there? Is it something? Are you like the CEO of the company or?
Yep, I'm the CEO. The day to day differs a lot, right? So Jay and I, we have a podcast, we do that a lot. Then it's just running a business, which is more stressful than combat. So it started off after the internal acquisition. Jay brought me on. We did a seed series round, and that was last fall into the Q1 of this year. wrap that up, and now we're really hitting the gas pedal. So getting my D2C team up and running, getting a B2B team up and running, and then just opening up new accounts and selling our drinkware and pushing our brand and building our brand.
And what's it been like, I guess? You said it's more stressful than combat. Tell me about that.
Yeah, it's a different type of stress, right? Because after you raise money and you have investors, you work for investors, and I never want to let anybody down, and I have a huge fear of being average, right? And so I want to exceed everyone's expectations. I set goals. I want to break all my own goals, and how I can do that is just by building our brand and selling our drinkware. Right now, we have a couple really cool products coming out. So the development of those products takes a lot of time, and moving from the pace of a SEAL platoon to the pace of a civilian life is drastically different. I want everything and I want it right now, and that's just not the case in real life.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, shit. That's one of the things, aside from all the hardware things that were wrong with me when I got back. That was the biggest adjustment, I think, was like just having normal conversations with ordinary people. And I'm like, hey, I need this, this, and this. Let's get that done. And they're like, okay, cool. That's going to, let's see. I think I can get that done 2 weeks from now. Like, no, we're not doing that. Which, I don't mind it, actually. At the time, it made me furious. But now looking back on it, I see, and we saw this in abundance. It's one of the reasons Black Rebel Coffee and the media company that we have here now got started. It's just like we refuse to accept that as an answer. Like my first response to it was like, "What the fuck?" I mean, my response should have been, if in like hindsight's 2020, but my response should have been, "I'm going to show you how to fucking really do shit." And I think that high tempo people that are good in chaotic situations have a lot to offer the entrepreneur community in America. Like these people that haven't really, and it isn't that they're weak. I think they're ignorant of their own strength. I think that's what it is. It's like that running the 4-minute mile. It wasn't one guy did it and then it never happened again. It was like one guy did it and then everybody started doing it, right? People just couldn't conceive of that. The limitations set by other people was the ceiling for them, right? I'm going to be as good as that guy, right? But that's not how life is. Very rarely is it like that. There probably is some peak human performance, but we haven't gotten close to it yet because we keep seeing drastic leaps in ability, right? Both in technology and in human performance. So that it should have been a mentoring opportunity for me. I just didn't. I was too angry at the time to deal with it. You know what I mean?
That's a great analogy, and because for me, I find a 70% solution and I execute it with 100% aggression. And the latter 30% that might, draw up a contingency, no issue. I'll just deal with those contingencies as they happen. But I'd rather just start going in the direction I want to go right now.
Yeah, I mean, what is it? Troop leading procedure, start necessary movement, right? You get the warning order, you start necessary movement. That's the first thing you do is start fucking moving. And that's hard. Like it's just not how people are raised or trained in business school or wherever they started out. You don't get that same kind of information, unfortunately. And I think that's why a lot of military vets, particularly those in the gunfighting community, have done extremely well in entrepreneurship afterwards, because it's like organization and motivation and just not being afraid of failing. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, I might fail, but fuck it. What are we going to do here? It's like, I'm not going to die. The risks are pretty low for us when we get back, to be honest. Like, oh, I'm going to fucking fail? No,
Absolutely. And one thing that I have trouble with now is conversations about potential. I don't want to sit around and talk about how great things are going to be, because we're not there yet. Let's just fucking make them great, and then we could talk about it. Mm-hmm. And so that's my, the last couple of weeks, that's kind of been, something that's been getting under my skin, but I'm working on it for sure. But yeah, I just think, to your point, veteran entrepreneurs just are a little bit of a different breed because of what you mentioned before. This isn't a life or death situation, so let's fucking go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is. It is. It was so in the beginning. It was just all of us, just a bunch of fucking veterans that some people were still in the military. Actually, I'd gotten out. I had just finished working for the federal government, but then over the years, as the company grew and civilians started to get added to the mix, our hiring procedures were unorthodox, right? Like when I was a VP of marketing there for a while, and I would like I give somebody when I would interview somebody for a job, I would give them some kind of challenging task under pressure and kind of fuck with them while they were doing it. You know what I mean? Just to see how they handle it. And then at the end, I would be like, "Tell me a fucked up joke, like something that you think would get you fired." To be honest, like just say whatever you want, because I like to like it's really important, and you know this from the work you've done. It's really important to see how people react to stress. It's not just generalized stress, but stress with risk, right? Because climbing a fucking mountain is stressful, I would imagine, right? I mean, I'm not going to do that because it's stupid, but unless I'm going to go shoot something on the mountain, then I would do it. But I assume it's stressful, but the stakes are pass fail. Who cares, right? Like I can fail today and even try again tomorrow, right? So it's not that big a deal. In a job interview, there's real stakes, and I really like throwing people into that crucible to see how they're going to react to it, because life comes at you fast, dude. And it is. I don't know. I mean, it kind of feels like let's see who can swim. Throw everybody some fins and a tank, and just like, hey, jump in the water and see what you got, buddy. We'll save you if you start to drown, but let's see what you got. Just start like you said before. Just start the movement. Start doing something. I think it was. We had a pretty high attrition rate there for a while because
How'd that method work out? Hiring cast, putting them through stress, and
it worked really well. Culture and attitude fits are way more important than generalized skills, in my opinion. Like you can teach any asshole how to fucking sell widgets or do marketing or whatever. I mean
Yep.
It's not we're not splitting the atom here. You know what I mean? We're like making a plan and we're executing on that plan, right? That's it. It's simple stuff, but you got to be able to fucking stay like discipline is way more important than motivation, in my opinion, because motivation will come and go, but discipline is always there. And that's something like you can see if somebody is like an intrinsically disciplined person. If you throw hard shit at them, they're either going to that's the point of every selection process. You're going to see if they're going to quit or keep trying. So it worked out pretty well for me.
What was the best joke you heard?
Man, I remember the kid who told it. I don't remember the joke though. He showed up in a suit for the interview, which is you should, right? Because I'm wearing like shorts and flip flops, but he shows up to the interview in a suit, and I just roasted him the whole time. His name's Michael. I just roasted his ass the whole time for doing it. But he was a great employee. Yeah, great employee. I can't remember what the fuck was the joke. It was probably racist, to be honest. I don't remember, but I'm sure it was. And then there were other people that came from the traditional marketing world, like people who are like email marketing specialists. I remember this one woman. I don't remember her name or anything, but it wouldn't matter. I remember this one woman. I was like, "Tell me a really funny joke," and she's like, "Oh, I don't really know any." And I'm like, "Well, why do you want the job?" And I asked her that question too. And she goes, "Yeah, I'm just really passionate about email marketing." I'm like, "That's not a thing. Nobody's passionate about email marketing. Get the fuck out. That's stupid." Right? But yeah, it's like, it's. And this is going to segue to the next thing I want to talk about. Most of the people that I was hiring were about 10, 15 years younger than me, right? And fair enough. That's how it works in the managerial world. You deal with people from different, sometimes different cultures even, but definitely different periods in their life. And we have a tendency to complain about, oh, nobody ever wants to work anymore. These kids, this and this, like, what? They're fucking our kids. What are we talking about? Like, when did it become acceptable for men in America to be like, oh, women just aren't good anymore, or our kids, look at these fucking kids. You know what I mean? Like, that's your job, is to fucking mentor these people. What the fuck are you talking about? You know what I mean? It's like, what a wasted opportunity to sit around and cry about this situation instead of doing something.
Mm-hmm. So did you run into those issues where you had someone that their work ethic that you thought was lacking and you give them some mentorship, or did you weed that out in the interview process?
We did a pretty good job weeding it out, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, every now and again, you're going to get somebody who, and to be honest, I don't think that many people are lazy. I think most people are disorganized, so it makes the job harder than what it needs to be, and it's fucking frustrating, right? It's like a child trying to do something mechanical, but they really haven't developed their fine motor skills yet, so they either fucking cry and shit their pants or they give up, right? Luckily, we didn't have any of the crying or shitting pants. In any business, you're going to experience some of the giving up part. So, you know, that is a great mentorship opportunity because you're like, hey, fucking relax, dude. Here's why you're failing. Like, I'm going to show you why you're failing. Here's me doing it right. Here's what you're doing. You're doing it wrong. Now your job is quite a bit easier, right? So go try this for a while and then come back to me and let me know how it works. And I feel like that's a pretty good method of training, like of using the opportunity of failure to lift somebody up, because that's what it is.
I agree. And another thing that happens in SEAL teams, I'm trying to do it, create this culture within my own organization, is create a culture that demands the performance, right? You walk into a room and everyone there is a performer, everyone there is motivated, smart, and hardworking. You walk in that room and you're not going to be lazy because you're gonna feel shameful, right? It's gonna make you feel like a lazy piece of shit. And so you rise to the occasion, you rise to the room. So I try to, surround myself with folks that have that type of buy-in and create that type of culture.
Yeah, I mean, it's this from being being an operator, fucking, and you described it a little bit before about being close to dam neck and stuff like that, but psychology is very contagious. Like, you can't. It's very difficult to be a winner amongst losers, and it's very difficult to be a loser amongst winners, right? Like, you will ultimately rise and fall to the level of the company you keep. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Now, that isn't to say you shouldn't pull people up with you. Obviously, you should try to do that as much as possible. But that is that's an exercise that you go through. That's not the standard. Like, the standard is to fucking find people that are better than you to learn from, right? And then to try to push that information as far. Like, I mean, it's the standard in the military is to know the job of the guy ahead of you and behind you, right? There's a reason for that, and it's. There are multiple reasons for it. The first one is obviously just to be resilient as a unit, but I think more importantly, that is part of the institution. That's part of the infrastructure that makes an organization great. Is that there's a constant flow of subject matter expert, and I mean, this is the way unions set it up too, right? Subject matter expert, or then journeyman, then apprentice at the bottom, right? That's how it's got to be. It's got to be like that. Otherwise, every second generation, we lose all of the institutional knowledge we have if we don't have that kind of pipeline set up. So it's not just important for, I mean, obviously the stakes are high when it's the military. It's life or death. So it's really important there. But that's not the only reason that it's important. It's also important for the health of the organization moving forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I completely agree. And it falls right in line with mentorship, and that has a near and dear spot in my heart because I've had great mentors throughout my life, and so I try to be the best mentor I can and the best mentee possible. Because I called one of my mentors at 7:30 this morning, asking him for advice, and he picks up the phone right away. So I also try to be that person for other people every chance I get. It's very important to me.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to take every chance you can to do that stuff, especially if you're the business owner, right? So I've got a buddy out in he lives in San Francisco actually, but what he and his wife, they start they do medical company startups basically. So they have somebody will send in their portfolio for their idea. Usually it's a medical device, sometimes it's treatment, stuff like that. I don't think they really deal with the pharmaceutical industry at all, but they will come in as CEO and COO as partners in the company for a stake in the company, and they'll grow that company using all the expertise they have, and then do an exit. They'll sell the company or whatever, right? And they use the same employee handbook for every single company they do, and it's a book, and there's one page inside of it, and you open it up and it says act like an owner. That's all it says in the book. And obviously you don't just put that out into the ether without some kind of explanation. You train people to understand what it means. And it's almost like having a mission statement, but this one puts the onus on the person, because what they also set up a program inside the company that would give 5% of the equity of the company to the employees at the exit sale, and it's split up based on their time and service and all that other bullshit. So he would explain to them, what does it mean to act like an owner? You're on the road doing marketing presentations for this company. Are you getting the best possible room and meal you can? Or are you acting like this company fucking means something to you? You know what I mean? It's like the reason that we gave you a percentage of the company is because we want you to feel like an owner and act like one, right? Like, be efficient, be honorable in the way you conduct yourself. Like you may, this is a big problem with employees, right? And I don't mean that they're wrong for doing it. I mean, it's the relationship between owner and employee has to be corrected in some way for most companies. I think they fuck it up really badly, because the best employee is the happiest one, right? One that feels like they have a sense of ownership and purpose in their position. Because if somebody just works at Apple and they know next week they're going to work at Facebook, they're not going to fucking do everything they can to make Apple a successful company. You know what I mean? And the same goes for your company and mine. If you treat your employees poorly, if you pay them poorly, and if you don't listen when they have gripes and complaints about stuff, then you're not going anywhere as a company. All they're going to do is like spread negative information about you for the rest of the company's lifetime. But if you, I'm not saying that every company even has the ability to set aside an equity stake for their employees, but you have to give them something that makes it like, you have to turn the job into a career for them. That should be the transition point from my perspective. Like, can I give this person not just money for the next 5-7 years or however long it is, but can I set them up for success in every job they have after that, or turn them into an entrepreneur? How do I do this stuff, right? And that for me is, as an entrepreneur, is always the goal.
And that's, without ever hearing that story before, that's what I'm trying to do organically within my company, because I look at my position and I pulled this out of my own feeble mind was, okay, who am I as a CEO, right? I am just the best steward of the organizational of the organization possible. Right?
Well, yeah, I mean Augustus Caesar called himself first citizen.
Okay, yeah.
Instead of emperor, which was his actual title, but he referred to himself as first citizen.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just the best steward of my organization. And how can this transcend down to my employees, right? And there's multiple different ways, as you mentioned before, but that's my sole goal right now, because you see, I deal with it, with other large companies we work with. They don't give a shit about me, right? And I'm dealing with numbers that I've never dealt with before, money, large amounts of money that I've never even fathomed before, and these transactions going back and forth, and I'm hanging on this purchase order, waiting to hear back, and I have a lot of resources and money wrapped up into it. And the person on the other end of the phone, they're just working a 9 to 5. They don't give a fuck about their company, let alone mine, right? And so that's always a tough pill to swallow. And I try to never replicate that on our end when we're dealing with customers.
Yeah, I mean, you know First Form, right? You're familiar with them?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Andy's a good buddy of mine. They have the best customer service of any company I've ever dealt with. And they prioritized it from the beginning. So once they started as a company and started to get traction, they hired a massive sales team. But their sales team isn't like other sales team. It's a customer support team, right? And it's a proactive one. So they sit on the phone all day, typing emails to people or calling them like, hey, you're good on all your stuff. How's your training program doing? Because they have overlapping stuff. They got a lot of supplements and protein and shit, but they also have an app that's good for weight loss. They have another app that's good for training, like that you can buy training programs and stuff like that for. And, just what I know from business school is that a negative customer experience with good customer service on the back end of it makes a person 7 times more likely to re-engage with your product, right? 7 times more likely. And then I look at something like, and this is just like stuff that people should know, generally speaking, but it costs somewhere between 7 and 12 times more to make a new customer than it does to keep one that you already have, right? Which is, it's bananas. So you map that map that data onto how you train, like select, train, and treat your employees who are the first person that somebody talks to, another human being, when they engage with your company. And it all comes into focus. It's super important, right? That this person who's on the phone doing grunt work all day sees a light at the end of the tunnel, because that's not the best job in the world. Some people actually really like it and they'll do it their whole life, but for most people I think they're looking for steps up, right? So if you're in a job and you don't see the next step in that job, then you're giving 50% effort. That's my opinion.
I completely agree. And we and I focus a lot on customer service to the point where I personally call people. If something, for example, this one guy finally somehow I don't know who he was emailing, finally got to me. Well, I just called him and his package was going somewhere where it wasn't supposed to go, or to a PO box or something of that nature. I'm like, hey, let me make this right. And to your point, that now that guy reaches out all the time and he's a repeat customer tenfold, and that's how the lens of the light that I want my organization painted in.
And where are you guys located?
Nashville.
Nashville. How is it out there finding good employees and shit? It's like pretty good.
Um,
There's a lot of sprawl in Nashville, so there's a lot of different types of people out there.
so it has been great, right? Everyone, it was surprising. It surprised the hell out of me when I moved down here. I moved down here about a year ago now, and what surprised me was how nice everyone was. It blew my mind. And my neighbor walked up to me after I lived here about 3 or 4 months. He goes, "Do you think it's weird?" I'm like, "Do I think what's weird?" He goes, "How nice everyone is." I'm like, "Man, it has blown my mind." And I'm actually waiting for to meet my first asshole so I could shake his hand. Be like, "Man, I've lived here for 3 months. I've been waiting to meet you." Right? So everyone down here is extremely nice and works extremely hard. And I'm very thankful to be here.
Yeah.
It's one of those places. It made me a nicer person, makes me a better person because everyone around you is nice and works hard.
Sure. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly good to surround yourself with people who have a positive attitude. Um, Moroseness is cancerous in a team or a fucking organization of any kind, business, whatever it happens to be. So what's next for you guys? What do you got coming up in the future?
we're just still continuing to build our brand. We have a podcast, the Outsider Podcast, that Jay and I run. And we've been fortunate enough, since we live in Nashville, to have some great guests on. And then we're coming out with new products. We have a backpack cooler coming out. I'm actually going to start production on that in the next week or two, but it won't be out till maybe Q4, but more than likely Q1 of next year, because I don't want to rush it. Then working on some new lines of drinkware that'll be out this year, because my goal is to not just recreate the wheel, but bring ingenuity to high quality drinkware, right? So I like to fix a problem with all our SKUs. So for example, this one here is our highest selling one, and it's called the AM coffee mug, and the handle rotates so it fits down in the cup holder of your pickup or your Prius or whatever you drive, right? And our hard koozie fits everything, all your slim cans, even the Coors Banquet bottle. And I'm coming out with a version 2 of that, which is going to be even better. We'll start making that here in the next couple weeks, so hopefully have that by Q4. So just bring ingenuity to the market and just put a face behind high quality drinkware. We saw, a gap in the market with some other big companies have done, and in the outdoor space, and how they represent themselves now. So we just wanted to put, a face and a veteran-owned company behind high-quality drinkware and products.
Yeah, I mean, it can be tough to source some of this stuff, to be honest, especially double-walled stainless steel containers. There's only a couple places in the world to even get them. They're not made in the U.S. that I'm aware of.
No, I mean, I could make them here, but no one wants to buy a $150 cup.
Yeah, pretty much.
You know, but yeah, so they're all made overseas. So that learning the logistics game was a whole nother monster, and then just learning it as I go, and creating this brand. Jay's been phenomenal, right? Tons of help. He's the most selfless and intelligent human being in the world. And we have conversations. I have to say 3 words, and he gets the gist of it. He is so intelligent, great to work with, great buddy, great business partner.
And where does he live? Is he in
He's in here in Franklin too. So we're in
Okay, yeah,
Franklin, 20 minutes south of Nashville.
yeah.
Went over and helped him move this morning. He's moving from, kind of more out in the country into a neighborhood here.
Um, and how you where's your guys' headquarters there as well in Franklin, or is it in the city?
Yeah, it's right here, and our fulfillment center is in Alabama, and there's some employees in Illinois, and then also in Kansas City, and kind of
Nice.
spread out.
And you guys are making like you got something, the PM can cooler.
Hmm.
Have you done any brand deals with those? Like if I wanted to have a bunch of hard AF ones made to sell on my website?
Absolutely. That's one of the, thanks for asking that question.
Mm.
That's one of our main streams of revenue right now is private labeling our drinkware and selling it.
I mean,
So,
it's really for a 12-ounce can, it's fucking $23. That's very inexpensive.
mhm.
And now
And
printed, it would be probably more. Fair enough, right? But like that's compared to everything else in the market for because we have some of these on our site, and they're not nearly as high quality as yours. This is a very good price. Yeah, it's
and
a very good price.
it's virtually everything.
It fits
And
12 and 16-ounce cans. I mean, what else are you gonna have? Unless you got a fucking 22 rocking around. But if you're
and
cruising around with a 22, it's probably in a brown paper bag. Let's be real about
yo,
it.
deuce, deuce.
Yeah, yeah.
It fits all the slim cans as well and all your seltzers. So,
That's dope. Yeah, we need to talk about that offline.
yeah,
Cool, man.
sure.
Well, look, everybody go check out outsider.com and then tell everybody where they can find you, where they can find more information about your company and Jay and all that stuff.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. Yeah, you can
Mm.
check us out online at outsider.com. You can check us out on Instagram at outsiderig and myself out, Sam Mackey 615 and Jay Cutler out at if Jay had Instagram. And check us out, give us a follow, and we have a lot more products coming down the line. We're just getting warmed up.
Yeah, remind me the other products coming down the line. You've got some new drinkware, but you've got a backpack that's a cooler as well.
Yeah, we have a backpack cooler, a smaller cooler coming out, and a bunch of different SKUs of drinkware. One I'm extremely proud of. It'll be out. It's a version 2 of the hard koozie that you
Hmm.
just spoke about. That'll be out later on in the year, and then I have a regular cooler that we're coming out with, but it's not regular. It doesn't even exist yet, so I don't want to give away too
Sure,
much of
yeah.
that I'm going to work on for about the next year, and I think it could be a game changer.
Sweet. Well, look, man, thanks for coming today. I appreciate the conversation. It's been really, really fun, and I like these products too.
I appreciate you, brother. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man, and thank you all for listening. This has been Citizen.